Hospitals are the most important buildings in the world. And somehow, they're also the easiest places to get lost. Here is the problem.
Hospitals are not really one building. There are many buildings connected together over time. Different wings, different departments, different renovations.
Some hospitals have been growing for decades. A new department gets added, the surgery wing, the parking deck, the new emergency entrance.
And every time something gets added, the wayfinding system has to stretch. The building grows. But the visitor still expects it to feel simple.
That's what makes hospitals very difficult. Because, for example, at the airports, the design is made for you to keep forward. Then for shopping malls, it's made to explore, right? But hospitals needs to guide people quickly, without feeling them lost, and whoever is there is already stressed.
And that's the part people forget. Most people inside hospitals are not calm. They're late, worried, distracted, in pain. So wayfinding has to work for people who are already overwhelmed. This changes everything.
A sign in hospital doesn't just give directions. It needs to lower the anxiety.
That's why hospitals rely on layering wayfinding system, not one sign, a system. So you have large overhead signs, wall directories, color-coded routes, room numbering system, department names.
Because in a hospital, one sign usually is not enough. People need a reassurance. They need to know, am I going the right way?
That's why follow-up signs matter so much. A good hospital sign doesn't just point once, it confirms the journey. And similar like airports, hospital signage works the best at decision points. Before elevators, before hallway splits, before department entrances, before a visitor has to choose left, right or straight.
Not after confusion happens, because once someone feels lost in a hospital, stress rises fast.
And when the stress rises, people stop processing information clearly. They don't read every word. They scan for the next clear answer.
That's why hospital signage needs to be simple. Not because the building is simple, but because the person reading it might not be.
This is where design becomes critical. Short words, strong contrast, clear arrows, consistent symbols, and you have readable type.
Because more information does not mean always better wayfinding. Sometimes more information just creates more pressure. And a hospital sign has to answer the next question, not the old questions. Here is why it matters.
Because not everyone navigates at the same way. Some people rely on sight, some rely on touch, some on larger text, some clear symbols. The system has to work for everyone.
But even with all that, hospitals are still hard to navigate. Because the building is trying to solve too many problems at once.
Public circulation, private circulation, emergency access, patient's privacy, staff-only area, security, service routes, all happening inside the same building.
So the visitor sees a hallway. But behind that hallway is much larger system. And signage is trying to translate that system into something simple. That is not easy. And that's the real challenge. Taking something incredibly complicated and making it feel manageable.
The best hospital wayfinding systems are not usually the ones people barely notice. Because when navigation works, people stop thinking about the building.
And that's the goal. Not fancy signs, not impressive architecture, just less confusion. In a place where people already have a lot to worry about.
Good hospital signage quietly guides people, step by step, one decision at a time. From parking to entrance, to elevator, to department, to the room.
Hospitals are not easy to get lost by accident. They're difficult. Because they're trying to organize one of the most complex environments people ever created. And good signage is what makes that complexity feel human.
Thank you for watching. And remember, hospitals don't need prettier signs, they need calmer decisions.